Salutations, my Morbid Maggots. Joker here, welcoming you back to the Morbid Veil. Today, we're happy to present to you our first Fallout 4 build. But first, if you haven't seen our previous build, then click the pop-up now to view it. We also ask that you wait until the end of the video for a spooktacular surprise, guaranteed to make you scream. Now, allow me to introduce you to the boogeyman of the Commonwealth, the Faceless. Billy Bridger was just your average student. He lived a quiet, peaceful life until the divorce. His mother learned of his father's infidelity, and the two separated. And the woman who caused this damage to his family was none other than Maureen Weary, the mother of Billy's girlfriend. The pain of being betrayed by the mother of the girl he loved was too great that it caused him to have a psychotic break. But not in the way you'd expect. Rather than lashing out in a fit of rage, poor Billy became trapped inside of his own mind, as an alternate personality took control. This personality called himself the Faceless, and was a cold, calculating monster, and he quickly devised a plan to ruin the life of Nora. He started by waiting for Nora's mother to have another affair. After their midnight fling was over, the Faceless snuck into the Weary house and murdered Maureen in her own bed. He planted evidence that led to her recent lover, and he was quickly arrested. A year later, the Faceless continued his plan and began killing all of Nora's friends and family, taunting her for not being able to find him or save her family. Everyone she knew and loved was killed, all except for Billy, who narrowly escaped with his life. Evidence was later found on Officer Dewey Weathers, incriminating him for the death of the teenagers and Nora's father and aunts. The Faceless retreated into Billy's subconscious, and there it waited for the opportunity to strike. Billy graduated high school, but instead of going to college with Nora, he enlisted in the military. For 7 years he served before returning home to propose to the love of his life. Nora and Billy got married and moved to Boston to build a family together. 2 years later, Nora gave birth to a beautiful baby boy named Sean. And right before Halloween, the Faceless returned. He sought to murder the baby right before Nora's eyes, before revealing that he himself was in fact the one who murdered her entire family all those years ago. But something happened that the Faceless did not expect. The love that Billy had was so great that he would not allow his family to die. Billy fought with all of his might and banished the Faceless to the dark recesses of his mind. For 3 days, they continued to be a happy little family, until that dreadful day. The day the bombs fell, and the family was rushed to the vault. And there they hoped to remain. But Vault-Tec had other ideas, and the family, along with all the other citizens of Sanctuary, were cryogenically frozen. Roughly 140 years later, they were thawed out, and Billy was forced to watch as his wife was shot in the head and his child ripped from her arms. 40 years later, Billy was released from the cryo prison, only to find that what he thought was a nightmare was a terrifying reality. Frantically, he opened the cryopod, but it was too late. He fell to his knees, and a voice echoed from behind his eyes, calling out to Billy, offering him solace. Broken and on the brink of madness, Billy gave in, and the Faceless took over once more. Both of his desired victims had been stolen from him, and the Faceless left the vault with one desire, and one desire only: to find Sean and slit his throat. The Faceless is a monster through and through, and although the cryostasis did affect his body and mind, he isn't too impaired to continue his hunt. His starting stats are as follows: Strength 4, Perception 3, Endurance 4, Charisma 3, Intelligence 4, Agility 9, and Luck 1. As he travels across the Commonwealth searching for his victim, the Faceless takes time to improve his stalking skills and starts off by stalking the raiders and degenerates who he finds scattered throughout the wasteland. Many of them are simple-minded, but there are a few who offer a bit of a challenge to his hunt. But hey, that's part of the fun, isn't it? It wouldn't always be fun if you could slit the throat of everyone with ease. Eventually, the Faceless turns into a true boogeyman, frightening even the toughest men and women in the Commonwealth, becoming far more terrifying than the Institute. Now for the gear. The Faceless gave himself that name because, unlike Billy, he has no emotion. He's driven by the primitive desire to kill, and thus wears a sack over his face when he's out stalking his prey. To complement this mask, he wears the Corsair uniform he took from his first Corsair victim. He eventually takes over Nuka World and is attracted to the Disciples' attire, specifically one of their masks. He tosses the sack hood and dons a piece of the Disciples' attire. The combination of the Corsair uniform and the mask make any unlucky enough to cross his path fill with terror. Not only are they face to face with one who killed a Corsair, but they don't even know who is lurking behind the sinister mask. The Faceless is no fool, however, and does not go around wearing his attire in common areas. He has several outfits which allow him to blend into the crowds and streets of the Commonwealth. But once night falls, or once he has the opportunity to kill one of his victims, he will go into cover, change, and waste no time in spilling the blood of yet another helpless victim. His primary choice of weapon is his trusted blade, which was gifted to him by another serial killer in the Commonwealth, Pikmin. Pikmin's blade is used in close combat, especially in stealth. However, the Faceless also uses a unique wrench, which he nicknamed Big Stew. This destructive-looking item is used mostly against super mutants, Deathclaws, or to get an irritating enemy out of the way. Another weapon in his arsenal is a unique shotgun found in the water fortress of Libertalia. Though he prefers to cut through the flesh of his enemies, the Faceless realizes that a blade can't always do the job right. He uses his shotgun when facing tougher, well-armored foes such as the Brotherhood Knights. The last item in the arsenal of the Faceless are the Fury Grenades which he obtained from the Disciples. Sometimes, a good distraction is all one needs to infiltrate and butcher your desired victims. Other times, you just need a break, and should treat yourself to a blood show and some crispy squirrel bits. And now for the gameplay. When interacting with the locals of the Commonwealth, the Faceless usually tries to avoid emotional dialogue. When emotion is required, he forces the confused and mangled Billy out into the conversation for a word or two, before throwing him back into the subconscious. He takes on tasks that may further advance his skills, or provide him with an entertaining way of murder. These actions always help him in the end, and most of the time he'll kill the person he was working for, so they don't share any of his newfound secrets. In combat, the Faceless prefers to lurk in the shadows, only ever coming out to slice someone's throat. Should he be forced to engage in open combat, the Faceless will take a puff of jet to enhance his senses and use one of his melee weapons. Should his targets be too tough for simple melee attacks, he will retreat behind a corner and draw his shotgun to continue the fight from a distance. But as stated earlier, there are times when he just wants to relax and enjoy a good show. He throws a fury grenade into a crowd, sits back, and enjoys the bloodbath. And now for the timeline. In the start of his travels, the Faceless knows that Sean would not be hiding in Sanctuary. Instead, he heads to Concord, and there he finds a group of survivors who he greatly desires to kill. But he refrains from this murderous impulse, and instead helps them, only to return to Sanctuary with them. He thinks about it for a while, and decides to put off his search until he's more familiar with the wasteland. He sees great potential in Preston Garvey, but not as a fellow killer, merely as a tool to use and dispose of once its usefulness has ran out. Once he obtains a new skill from Preston, he sends him back to Sanctuary, while he finally heads to Diamond City. Once there, the Faceless is enchanted by the reporter known as Piper, who looks so very similar to Nora, one of the victims who was stolen from him. He asks Piper to join him, and the two travel the Commonwealth, searching for Sean. The Faceless eventually learns a few tricks from Piper, and once they come across the combat zone, he sends her to a random settlement, far away from her little sister. Kate is far more tolerable than Preston or Piper, and introduces her new boss to the beauty of chems. Unlike Kate, however, the Faceless never seems to get addicted to the drugs, no matter how many he uses in combat. Kate eventually gets sick and needs to be taken to Vault 95 to get the chems fleshed out of her system. Not long after, the Faceless picks up a new skill from Kate, but unfortunately has to leave her, as she can no longer stand chem use. But that's just fine. It's easier to kill victims when you don't have to worry about what the other person will think. The Faceless eventually finds and kills Kellogg, the man who stole his prey from him. He suspects that only one other group knows anything more about the Institute, and he is forced to ally himself with the Railroad to infiltrate the secret organization that stole his son. But on the bright side, he managed to get his hands on some ballistic weave, which he uses to enhance his courser armor. Once he discovers the secrets of Kellogg's memories, the Faceless tracks down Brian Virgil, who tells him that he needs a courser chip. After obtaining the chip and a new piece of permanent attire, the Faceless returns to the Railroad to get it decrypted. However, when Desdemona demands that he hands over the chip, his blood boils, and his nice guy persona fades. He leaves the Railroad for the rest of the day, hiding in one of their secret tunnels. He returns when everyone is asleep, and kills every man, woman, and synth in the Railroad, and even their poor assaultron, Pam. With the knowledge he needs from Tinker Tom's little trinkets, the Faceless returns to Brian Virgil to obtain some schematics. With the help of the Minutemen, the Faceless finally manages to get into the Institute. His prey is so close, he tastes it. But he finds Sean inside of a sealed room, but the boy refuses to open the door. And to his surprise, the boy is in fact a synth, and the old man, nicknamed Father, is actually Sean, the leader of the Institute. The Commonwealth Boogeyman is Sean, his son. Not Billy's son, but his son. His organization terrifies and murders many in the Commonwealth for their own selfish needs, something that the Faceless greatly admires. He joins the Institute and completely wipes out the Railroad and Brotherhood of Steel before turning his attention to the lovely sound of the Nuka World radio. Once he kills Coulter, the Faceless grows attached to the Disciples and their blood-spilling devotion. He especially takes a liking to Dixie, the only one of the Disciples who's as obsessed with carnage as him. Now, a little side note for you all. Although we never use mods for our character builds, we do recommend using the Dixie Companion mod for this build later on in your playthrough. The Commonwealth had become drenched in blood. No citizen could turn the corner without fearing that one of the Faceless was waiting for them. Preston had been mutilated. The Disciples, now called the Faceless Cult, controlled the castle. The Institute courses had been grafted into the Faceless Cult and were programmed to hunt, kill, and mutilate their victims. Due to their use of the molecular relay, they could appear and disappear at will. The Faceless himself had an implant placed in his head and the heads of his followers, allowing him to link with and control any and all members of the Faceless cult. At his side sits his wife, Dixie, the most loyal of his followers. On their wedding night, he surprised her with something truly special. A leather coat made of the skins of both Nora and Piper. The Commonwealth never sleeps anymore, for even their nightmares are filled with the blood and horror that the Faceless had brought to the Commonwealth. Gosh, that was wonderfully twisted, wasn't it? Now, we did mention a little surprise for you all, didn't we? In celebration of Scream 6's release, we're going to be giving away a Ghostface Box. Now, what's a Ghostface Box, you may ask? Oh, you know, nothing special. Just the means to start, or even add to your Ghostface collection. The box will include a top-of-the-line Ghostface costume, a modified prop knife, and a full movie collection, Scream 1, 2, 3, and 5, as well as a custom 8x10 drawing, courtesies of our dear friend Niklaus. To win this box, you have to be a subscriber, like this video, and leave a comment below. Whichever comment we love the most will be the winner, and we will then be announcing it on March 20th. And last but certainly not least, we have another Joker dialogue request. It's our old pal, Mr. Kane again. Mr. Kane asks if I could do the madness monologue from Batman the Killing Joke, with an over-the-top laugh at the end. Ooh, well, Mr. Kane, I can certainly do that.
Please, tell me what I'm doing here. Somebody!
Doing? Why, you're doing what any sane man in your appalling circumstances would do. You're going mad.
I remember.
Oh, I wouldn't do that. Remembering's dangerous. I find the past such a worrying, anxious place. Yes, memory's so treacherous. One moment you're lost in a carnival of delight, the child aromas, the flashing neon of puberty, all that sentimental candy floss. The next, it takes you somewhere you don't want to be. Somewhere dark and cold, filled with the damp, ambiguous shapes of things you'd rather forget. Memories can be vile, repulsive little brutes. Like children, no? But can we live without them? Memories are what our reason is based on. If we deny them, we deny reason itself. Although, what's wrong with that, really? It's not like we're contractually tied down to rationality. There is no sanity clause. So when you find yourself locked onto an unpleasant train of thought, head for places in your past where the screaming's unavoidable, remember this. There's always madness. You can just step outside and close the door on all those dreadful things that happened. You can lock them away forever. Have a great rest of your week, everybody, and we'll see you all here next time on the Morbid Veil.